This is where you would normally hear intro music if one of us kept up our end of the bargain. But it's Kevin and Brian here at Wait for Seattle podcast.
We're 18 episodes deep without music, and people
Yeah.
are still downloading it. So,
Yeah, people just like press play or put it on in Spotify, and then all of a sudden someone's just talking. There's no like grand entrance, Kev.
yeah. Although I do listen to Bill Simmons' podcast, and he has some Pearl Jam at the start.
Hmm.
It's the same song every time. That's
I
the
know, I love
issue.
it. I love
You
it.
you like it? You like the
Yeah,
same Pearl Jam clip every time?
it makes me feel like I know what I'm getting into, you know?
Yeah.
I like routine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like you'd be a routine guy. You're not a routine guy?
I'm all about routines.
Okay, then
Yeah.
we should have our Blue Scholars intro music is
Okay.
what we should have.
Yeah.
All right, I'll keep pushing for it every time. This is the Hero and Villains episode of Wait for It Seattle.
Heroes and villains kind of
Hmm.
goes with like the October Halloween
Hmm.
vibe. Do you think on a daily basis your students think of you more as a hero or as a villain?
A hero. And I don't say that to brag. I just think that I can connect to students decently well, and I don't think they see
Yeah,
me as a villain. So
yeah.
I would surprise me. My student feedback that I get at the end of the year would say I'm not a villain, so that's good.
Okay.
But I
All
have a
right.
question for you.
Yeah.
Um, well, my kids would probably think I'm a villain sometimes, but that's not what I was going to go.
Yeah.
I have two questions. Number one, speaking of October, do you like scary movies, horror movies?
Um, no. I just don't I'll watch them, but I don't like get enjoyment out of it, if that
Does
makes any
Christine like
sense.
scary movies?
Nah, she hates them.
Well, that's why you don't watch them.
Yeah.
That's the same with me. Dana says you can't unsee things once you
Yeah.
see them. She's
That's
like, I don't need
true.
to see them, right? She's like, I don't need to see them. But we were talking about
Uh,
it tonight at a family dinner,
yeah.
and Lincoln and I tried to watch Halloween the other night, the original 1978 Michael Myers.
Yeah.
It's
Do old movies, old scary movies, are they still scary?
I did not think it was scary. We watched the first 20 minutes and Lincoln fell asleep.
Yeah.
So it wasn't scary enough to keep him awake. He thought it was funny. Um, I could see it. It's suspenseful. Like it's a horror movie. Like
Yeah.
there's stuff. I'm acting like I'm gonna spoil
Yeah.
Halloween to people.
I've
Like it
seen other,
opens with
yeah.
Michael Myers being a kid killing his sister.
Yeah, that's
Like
pretty
that's pretty
intense.
dark, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but in terms of like comparing it to what my students tell me is super scary, so like they say like Hereditary and like Smile are like insanely scary.
It
And I
sounds,
don't even
yeah,
want to watch
I
them. They
don't even,
sound
yeah.
terrifying. So
I mean, I think Blair Witch probably holds up. That movie was pretty
my
scary.
sister-in-law just said that. That's her
It's a
movie.
pretty
Yeah.
if you like if I was getting a kid into the genre, like I'd start them off with that and see if they could handle it because that movie is pretty good.
See, I was going old school. I was like, let's watch Freddy Krueger, let's watch Michael Myers. Because Lincoln wants to dabble in horror movies, but
Yeah.
he's kind of afraid of a little bit, I think. All right, here's my second question.
Yeah.
Who is the best villain in Seattle sports history?
Oh, that is, I
It's
think that's,
hard. It's a hard one.
no, I think it's pretty easy. I think it's Howard
Oh.
Schultz. We've already mentioned him.
Oh yeah. I wasn't
I,
thinking of somebody on the inside, but that's what makes a good horror movie. He's on the inside, just
yeah.
like completely tanking. We didn't even know it. He was throwing it away.
Here's the thing that I think about. There was emails from the litigation that happened between the city of Seattle and Clay Bennett and his ownership group. But um, uh, if this whole thing happened like now, there would be text messages.
Mm,
I'd wonder what Howard Schultz like behind the scenes was saying. I
yeah.
mean, maybe your theory right. Maybe he's just a dummy and like
Yeah.
was really
Like what I said
naive.
last time, right? Like maybe
Yeah,
he's really naive. But that's an optimistic view. I mean, if he's truly a villain, a horror
yeah,
movie villain, then he knew exactly what he's doing.
yeah. So
That
who's
would
your
make him
villain?
truly a
Yeah.
villain. So here's what I thought of. I thought of Harbaugh.
Oh yeah.
So like between the Niners and Michigan last year, like
Yeah, he kind of owns them.
and like his tension with Pete Carroll with the khakis and like the
Yeah.
hard handshakes and stuff.
Yeah.
And then obviously winning the national title last year.
That's a
And
good
what
one.
was this whole thing with Michigan? Who has it better? Whatever it was,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
annoying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I,
there's other ones. I thought of like they're not really villains. Like Dikembe Mutombo, rest in peace, came to mind
yeah.
just because he held that ball over his head in 1994. But I'm like, he's
Yeah.
not a villain. He just beat the Sonics. Like Schultz is a villain, and
Yeah.
Harbaugh fits it, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a
but
good
related to
question.
Howard Schultz, real quick piece of news, I think. Did you see this rumor?
Yeah, that the NBA plans
Yeah.
to have the new team start in 2027, which I think that's what we were predicting,
Yeah,
right?
that's what we
Yeah.
predicted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, we were hoping maybe 26, 27, but as it went on this fall, it's like you could tell there's too much that has to happen
Yeah.
before, not only do you have to name the teams first, but then you have an expansion draft and all that stuff and salary cap implications. So I think that's good news.
I think that's
I
great
mean, Adam
news.
Silver will be on the list of villains if they name like Vegas and Mexico City, the two cities. He'll be high on
Yeah.
the list.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right, hero and villains episode. We'll get to some of those heroes and villains later. But we have some burning questions, don't we, Kev?
We do, especially after uh subpar week of
Yeah.
Seattle
Yeah.
sports.
Not great.
Uh yeah, so let's get things hot with our burning questions
Oh,
segment. I got here. I got some for you.
yep.
Um, my first question: what's the floor for an acceptable season? And you can say amount of wins, or you can think of it in a qualitative way. I'll leave that to you. For Mike Macdonald to stay as head coach of the Seattle Seahawks for the next season. And before you answer, I want to give you some context. Jim Mora lasted 1 year.
Jim Mora was terrible.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's
He,
terrible for Mike Macdonald?
well, let me ask you, do you think Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions is a good coach?
I think he's a great coach.
He had 3 wins his first year in Detroit.
I get that.
Do you
But
think Pete Carroll is one of the greatest coaches, if not the greatest coach in Seattle sports history?
I do.
7 wins his first year as a head coach of the Seahawks.
Yes. But he did make
So,
the playoffs, didn't he?
no, that
That
was a
was his
different.
second
He
year.
7-2 in a row, I think, but he made the playoffs the second time. I think
Yeah.
that's right. My point is that, I mean, to me, any, I guess if they, okay, I'll give you a floor. If they lost the rest of the games and they went 3-14, uh, I would think about it, but I think that's not going to happen. So I don't really think there is a floor. I think Mike McDonald's the coach for a few years. I thought I saw a pretty good tweet where someone said they're paying their offensive line $22 million
Yeah.
combined, which is not a lot. And Jamal Adams is making 20 and he's not on the team. And Quandre Diggs is making 10 and he's not on the team.
Yeah.
So they obviously made some mistakes, John Schneider in particular. I think it's BS for people to call for Schneider because they've lost 3 in a row. Schneider's good at his job. And he's going to stick with McDonald. And McDonald, my point with the offensive line is McDonald needs to build his team. And he hasn't had an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
So he doesn't annoy me. Like
Yeah.
I think I'm a little annoyed with like we have to be sharper because that's old after 3 weeks. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, you do. That's the job of a coach. But I think his floor's, I don't know. I'll give you 5 wins. He's still the
Yeah.
coach. If he
Yeah.
wins
So
one more game the rest of the year or zero, then maybe he goes.
so Mora was 5-11.
Yeah. He
Um,
came after Mike Holmgren, which obviously McDonald comes after Pete Carroll, but Pete Carroll hasn't been, what they had not been well, they didn't go to the playoffs for 1 year. They haven't won a playoff game in 5 years.
Here's the only thing I think that you returned so many pieces from last year, and I think you've said this in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, but um, the personnel, at least on this at the skill positions, are there. Although Maybe not a wide
Mm,
receiver. We thought at wide receiver, but maybe not so
well, it
much.
is. I think it is. I
Yeah.
think I think people got excited about Tyrell Dodson and Jerome Baker at linebacker.
Yeah.
But like those guys aren't there's a reason they were available and they're not household names
Yep.
and they're getting exposed.
Yep.
There's a reason Rayshon Jenkins is our safety and he was available.
Yep. Yep.
Also, they really lost one game that they shouldn't have. I think the problem is they're not playing well. They're not crisp. It's ugly. They're making
Yeah.
mistakes, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
like the Huskies were in that Coug Rutgers stretch,
Yep.
which I actually think it's not the Huskies' problem now. It's not a mistake. They've got mistakes, but not the
Well,
penalties they
yeah.
had before.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they just need to go win in Atlanta. They really do. They got to go win this week, which is not going to be easy.
These types of questions I think are that first question is emblematic of if you spend a chunk of time on Twitter after a game or during a
Yeah,
game, these are the types of things that are said. So
100%.
I think your take
Do you agree?
I
Like, is
agree.
is there a floor for him? Like,
I think like if he lost the rest of the games, that would be
I mean, you'd
problematic.
have to move on, right?
But
Like,
I
you
think
can't
that's
lose
like
14 in a
yeah,
row.
I think that's like he would have to purposefully be doing that.
Yeah,
We'll see.
yeah.
Okay, this is my second question. If you watch Thursday Night Football and you
Hmm.
look at the lower bowl, you'll notice that it was a sea of red. And the next day at Christine's school, it was Filipino Heritage Day, and they had a little lunch. And one of the parents, they're hardcore 49ers fans, so they always rib me about the rivalry. And
Hmm.
he goes, "Did you watch the game? There was, did you see? There were more 49ers fans, and you could hear them on the telecast chanting, right?" And I said, "Yeah, it's pretty bad." Uh, and people have this idea that the season ticket holders just put their tickets up for sale and that they're just giving them away to 49ers fans. I mean, I don't know the economics behind this or the data, but I do think that's a reasonable conclusion that most of the tickets on the open market for a road game will go to the opposing fan base.
Hmm.
And people like are really upset about
Yeah.
this. Like these people should be banned from ever buying season tickets and things of that nature. And I don't know where you stand on this, if you're that extreme, or maybe it's a reasonable take to say, hey, like you're a season ticket holder, you have a responsibility to make sure your tickets go to a Seahawk fan for a big game like this. But I don't know. That seems kind of weird. Uh,
Yeah.
when is it okay for a season ticket holder to sell their tickets on the open market?
When you say it like that, it's sort of always okay. Like from an
Yeah.
economic perspective, like, um, I mean, it's your investment, right? So I think there's multiple parts here. I think many of those tickets are not bought by individuals anymore. I think companies are doing it. It's not really that different. It's a much lower extreme than the Taylor Swift situation where these companies, I don't know if you want to call them a broker, whatever they are going online and getting as many as they can using technology and bots, right, to get crazy amounts and then reselling them. And of course, they're going to be able to resell a nationally televised Thursday night game to Niner
Yeah.
fans, right? Um, but it's been going like that. I mean, I was a season ticket holder 15 years ago, and there was a lot of visiting fans, but it was less. Um, I think as an individual, it would be cool if they didn't sell them on the open marketplace.
Yeah, and there's
And
more than enough resources to ensure your tickets go to
yeah,
another Seahawks
and
fan.
this is where I'm going to give Steve Ballmer a little credit. I don't know if it's going to work, but do you know this whole thing with the Clippers?
Oh no, this
Okay, so the
enlightened me.
the Clippers new arena, which looks fantastic, really cool. So behind one of the baskets, they have a section called the Wall.
Oh, it's like a student section, isn't it?
It is all Clipper fans, and so there's a couple things they're trying to do. Number one, you can only resell them on the official Clippers fan ticket marketplace that they hold. If you wear opposing gear into the section, you can lose access to the section for life. Like, so they're trying to build it as a Clippers fan section only.
Do they do this for soccer matches, by the way?
Yeah. Yes. So the
Yeah.
Sounders, for example, right, the supporter section behind one of the goals. I
Yeah.
I always had season tickets one section over,
Yeah.
and my good buddy Robbie, who doesn't listen to our podcast because he's told me many times, you only talk about Seattle sports. What do I care about that? He's from Portland. So he came up for a Timbers game and he was wearing a Timbers jacket, and we are the section next to it. I have
Yeah.
season tickets I've paid for, and we got stopped from going to our seats. They were like, you can't go in with that jacket. And I got in a big fight with like this guy and a worker at the stadium because I'm like, I've paid for this. Like, this is my money I've paid. These are my seats. Like, this is not, I'm not in the supporter section. I'm not general admission. I get those rules.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, a cool guy from the ECS, the Emerald City supporters, came over and talked to us. And my buddy Ravi was like, I'm not going to cause trouble, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, but you really got to do it because otherwise this will ruin it for everybody. I was like, dang. So in soccer, they do. And so MLS, you'll see it even in NWSL games. There's a section for opposing fans. Can
Yeah.
they stop you from buying tickets and sitting somewhere else? No, but part of the culture in soccer is you don't sit with everybody else.
Yeah.
So maybe I mean, football just doesn't have that culture. And it sounds like Ballmer's trying to do something in LA. And I think if the NFL wasn't such a mega business, maybe one of these cool owners would make something like that. Like, you can't resell your tickets unless on a certain place, but you have to have enough demand, right? Like,
Yeah.
because ultimately they want to sell tickets.
Yeah.
So they only care about the first sale. And
Yeah.
it's all sold out in the lower bowl of Seattle. And how much of that is real people and real
Yeah.
fans? Very little, right? The
Yeah.
fans are all up in the 300 level, throwing fists at each other and shotgunning beers. Like, that's
Yeah.
where the Seahawks fans are crazy.
Yeah. Here's a cool thing that I just thought about. Did you know that tickets are actually licenses? So if you look at the back of, well, when we had physical tickets,
Yeah.
or if you look at a digital ticket and the receipt or whatever, or the fine print, it'll say it's a non-refundable license.
Mm,
And so what that means, it creates a contract between you and um, the team. And the team is saying you can sit in this seat subject to these terms.
right.
Um, and people will be like, these are my, not that you were
Like
saying
I was.
this.
No, no, no.
No,
It's
no, no,
fine.
no.
Yeah,
But
I'm
yeah,
not
these are
offended.
my like
Yeah, yeah,
seats, right? Like
yeah.
I am entitled to this. Well, you were entitled to the license
Yeah.
subject to the terms of whatever the team says are subject to. And I would think it would be really interesting for teams to do what Steve Ballmer's
Right.
doing and put strings on your tickets. Like, what
Right.
if you had a section where you could just hypothetically just say you have to cheer during the game, right? Like,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you don't cheer, I'm gonna, revoke your license and kick you
Right.
out of the game.
Right.
Anyways, that's just my nerdy law thing.
No, I think
But
that's interesting. I think for my case, my argument, not even knowing that, I think that's really interesting, is like I wasn't in that section. That
yeah,
was my argument, is like we're
yeah,
not there, but we were so close to it. And the fans, I mean, this was like 10 years ago. And I think
no,
Timbers and Sounders is pretty big still, but it was pretty heated. So
yeah,
they didn't want to fight to break out. I mean, they were doing it for good reasons, right? So
yeah.
um yeah, I think there's something there. I think Bomber might be onto something better than when he got on stage at Microsoft and just yelled, "Developers, developers, developers."
He was still yelling in Seattle this past weekend.
He was, he was. We'll
Yeah,
talk about that in a little bit. All right, I have a question
yeah,
for you. Burning
yeah,
question.
yeah.
It's the same question you asked me,
Mhm.
but it's a different coach. What's the floor for an acceptable season for Jedd Fisch and his staff to stay employed at the University of Washington?
I already think they hit the floor. And
Four wins.
I think it's because of the same reasoning that you're giving McDonald. I think it's even more extreme
Yeah.
because at least McDonald had a quarterback and players on defense. The Huskies returned two starters from last year.
Yeah.
Now there's the argument to be made. Well, he did bring in a crap ton of transfer talent. Um, that matters to an extent, especially at the skill positions, but offensive line and defensive line, when you're bringing in transfers from FCS schools, backups at other D1 schools that have never played together, most of them are underclassmen, you get the result you're going to get at Iowa, and you'll probably get that same result at Penn State. Uh, and oof,
I mean, I'll tell you what's going to keep him employed is
his
his
buyout.
7 year, $7.75 million deal that's paid for by
Yeah.
my tax money, Kevin.
Yeah. So here's what I figure too. The who who was the athletic director at the time? Dannon, who made the hiring and then left.
Yeah, Troy Dannon, the 2 month athletic director of the
Yeah.
University of Washington.
Um uh they figure he's probably gone before that even makes sense and they won't even have to fire him, right?
Who, Fish?
Fish. I
Yeah,
already saw,
The whole
yeah.
Florida thing, and
I read an article about someone wrote, and there's no credibility to this article, but it was like five college coaches that could be considered for the Jets vacancy. And Fish was
Jedd Fisch. He
one of the
does have
coaches.
I think it's the
NFL
NFL
thing, yeah.
experience plus the NFL pedigree in the program and all that. But
Yeah. So I think
uh
he's already for me, um,
yeah, he's hit the floor. I agree with you.
yeah.
Four wins, they could go 4-8. People
Yeah.
be pissed. He's still gonna be there. He's gonna say he's got a recruiting class. He's
Yeah.
got Damon Williams. He's got
The
transfer portal,
the
whatever.
schedule was brutal. Like if you look at other Big Ten schedules, they're playing like Maryland.
Yeah,
They're playing, Rutgers is a hard game, but for us, we played Michigan at
yeah.
Penn State, at Iowa,
No Ohio State though.
and USC, and Oregon.
Yeah,
Here's the thing, the Huskies will always have a more difficult schedule because of the protected rivalry against Oregon, whereas USC's protected rivalry is against UCLA.
yeah. And
Right?
the Huskies
So
probably will play USC, even though it's not protected, just for
fairly
travel
free. Yeah,
purposes. That's
fairly
my
frequently,
guess.
but no, they're not playing USC next year. Like
Oh,
they've
okay.
already planned this out for
That's
like
right.
the
You're
next
right.
8 years,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
I thought it would be that way,
Yep.
but it's not. So
You're right. They don't play Minnesota and they don't play Maryland. Even though Minnesota's okay now, they're kind of giving people some trouble, but they're
or like
not.
Purdue, like
Purdue,
give me
yeah,
Purdue.
yeah, and they're not playing Illinois, who is kind of good, right? But
Yeah, but we
yeah,
draw Indiana, who's number 16 on the
yeah,
road.
yeah. I kind of agree with you. They're probably going to go win that game.
I
But
hope.
that's just kind of how they are.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another one for you.
Yeah.
How much coffee? How much coffee have you drank today? But secondly, how much hockey has Kevin watched this week? Burning question. Everybody wants to know.
Yeah, 2 cups of coffee.
Okay.
Um, how much hockey? I watched intently the first period of the first game, and then I half watched the second and third periods of that game, and I tuned out when they scored when they
Yeah.
like effectively lost, and then I got your text messages. And then the other games, I actually couldn't have watched because the Kraken Hockey Network is limited to Amazon Prime and local Seattle.
Oh, you not have
So
Amazon Prime,
I
Kev?
do have Amazon Prime, but it's like only
Oh.
in certain states.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to watch a lot
Yeah,
of Kraken
so
hockey.
I can like go across the street and go watch literally across the street and go watch the San Jose
Sharks.
Sharks.
Yes, that's what
I
they're
was gonna
called.
say earthquakes.
Yeah. Nope.
But yeah, I can't watch
Okay. Well, that's
watch the
fair.
Kraken.
That's fair. That
So,
wasn't fair of me
but I
then.
watched the highlights.
Um, I wanted to bring that up to talk about the Kraken briefly in their opening
Yeah.
week. So I did go to the game on Tuesday. I teased it on the podcast. I
How
left.
was it? Did it feel like an opening
It's awesome.
day?
I missed all the theatrics because
Yeah.
finished teaching at 1:05. The game started at 1:30. I missed the first 7 minutes, maybe. No
Yeah.
goals. So that was great. Didn't miss any goals. Was in the last row behind the goal in the Amex Hall, which is the best place to sit in Climate Pledge because it has its own entrance, its own exit, has its own concessions that are never long lines. It's awesome.
And the
It's
concessions were open.
Yep, it's worth. Yeah, they were. I didn't have to go into the dungeon though. Among the common folks, I was up, and the seat was reasonably priced. And shout out to our listener Jim who bought my concessions for me, so that was nice of him.
Damn, I need a
I know,
dude. We got a
cousin-in-law, he's the
sponsor?
best. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. We got to sponsor him again.
So
I'd like to bring up Jim
wait.
pulling real estate for.
Yeah, wait, can we talk about this? I have a
Yeah,
screenshot. I was on ESPN.com and one
yeah.
of his ads
You
showed
saw
up.
him, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should ask him about it. He knows nothing about it. Somebody does it for him. That's how big time he is. He's gonna love it. Um anyway, it's really fun to go in person. Like it was awesome. And the Kraken started well. They were up 2-0 and I was excited. And then they had a terrible 5-minute stretch where they lost the game. And then I watched all of the game the other night, last night. They won in overtime at Minnesota. That was a big win. Minnesota's good. They scored 4 goals. They actually won in a shootout, which they are terrible at historically. So that was exciting. And then they just had a big stinker about an hour ago. They lost 2-0 to Dallas, which isn't like a bad score, but I don't know.
Back to
So,
back game matches.
yeah, it's not often. That's why
Yeah.
you'll have a different goaltender in each night. I don't know. No goals, wasn't great. The opening game, their face-off percentage was terrible. Like they got smoked on the face-offs. Who knows? It's too early. They have a new coach, but they kind of look too similar to last year so far. Not enough firepower, not enough creativity. But I'm gonna watch. I'm excited still. I'm really happy they got 2 points last night because they needed to get something out of the first week. It'd be really easy for them to have zero. So they play Tuesday in Nashville, and then they're back home on Thursday. And I will say to all my Kraken listeners, Thursday is magnetic schedule night. And my favorite thing in the world is a magnetic schedule.
Yeah,
I
but
love magnetic
don't you
schedules.
like the rip-off ones that insurance companies do?
What? I've never had one of those.
Or like the car dealership will give you a magnetic and
No,
it'll
I love
like the
the magnetic
legit
schedule. I
ones.
have a Mariners one, I have a Rain one, and I have a Seahawks one.
And they're all in the fridge.
I happened to go to the right Rain game to get it. I went to the Mariners game on actually, sorry, we recruited people to get one for me who were going to that Mariners game. And then I went to Seahawks practice and got one. So I'm saying right now on the podcast, if you're going to the Kraken game on Thursday and you happen to listen to this, I would really love a magnetic schedule if you don't care about it.
Do you toss the old ones?
I'm Dana's like, can't we get rid of the Mariners one? I'm like, it's not over yet. It's still alive in my heart. Polanco's coming back. Here
Yeah.
he comes.
You
All right, I have
should
one more
create,
burning
yeah.
question
Oh
for
yeah,
you.
yeah.
All
Give
right.
it to me.
Does the Cascadia Cup mean anything to you?
Like, do I know what it is?
Let's start there.
Yeah. Um, it's the series victory win between the Sounders, the Timbers.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was, but
And
aren't the
and the
Whitecaps?
Whitecaps. Yes,
Okay.
that's a Northwest rivalry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it mean anything to me? I just can't get into it. I can't get
Just
into
soccer in general.
no, well, no, I can get into soccer, but
Okay.
this like rivalry thing, it's just a series rivalry
Yeah.
is just not as strong for me.
Yeah.
LMU and
And who?
Pepperdine
Oh, okay. I was like,
had
who?
the PCH Cup, which is Pacific Coast Highway, that doesn't even connect to LMU, but it's connects to Pepperdine. And
This
so
is a great example of a
yeah,
local rivalry that no one
yeah,
cares about.
no
Yeah.
one cares about it, but they tried to make it a thing,
Yeah.
right?
I actually think this is gonna piss soccer people off. I think you're right on it. Like, I think that's a Cascadia Cup, honestly. Like, they'll mention it on a broadcast, so it's well known enough, right? But it
Yeah.
really is the supporter sections who care, and they pass around the cup. They're the ones in charge of it. It's not even like official through the clubs; it's through supporter sections,
Oh,
which
really?
which
Oh,
is
now I'm
kind of
getting,
cool, right?
yeah.
In some ways, but also who cares? Um,
You
I
know what
usually I
yeah,
usually care when we have a chance to win. So if
yeah,
the Sounders beat the Timbers in the last regular season game,
yeah.
they win the Cascadia Cup, and so
You
all
know what
right,
would be
go do it.
cool if there was financial incentive. So the NBA Cup,
Yeah.
right? The player, whoever wins gets paid, right? So what if the teams, they're never going to do this.
Yeah.
This is just a hypothetical thing, but what if the team said, hey, we're going to, all the supporter sections, it's basically gambling.
Yeah.
You're in the supporter section and you want to be a part of this like series cup thing. So like you put money into the pot, and if your team wins, your supporter section gets all the money from the other supporter section.
Oh boy.
So
Yeah,
you're
they would never do
literally
that.
taking away the money from another fan group.
I think I think they make it even cooler. The other fan group should pick a player on the other team to take the money out of their salary.
Oh, that would be great.
then
You could
then
target.
the players would really play hard. Like when Clint Dempsey was playing for the Sounders and making lots of money, like the
Yeah.
Timbers fans are just like, give me Dempsey's money.
Yeah.
And then when he scores, he's just flicking them off like he would anyway. Like, ah, that'd be great.
These are great
Um,
questions.
all right. So the
Yeah.
Sounders, this is another way of just
Yeah.
highlighting this for next weekend. By the time we come back, they'll have finished the MLS regular season. Sounders are a top four seed. Timbers are also in the playoffs in the bottom end of the West. But that game should be fun. It should be a fun way for them to end, and hopefully the Sounders keep their momentum going, and we'll be able to talk about their seed next time in the playoffs. And I think the MLS playoffs are fun. It's something I track more than the regular season. It becomes a bigger issue or a
Yeah.
bigger deal. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Weird format, but cool. So those are our burning questions.
I
We're all
like that
burned out.
segment.
So
Yeah.
now we got to get to heroes and villains of the week. Um, this will allow us to talk about a few news items, and also, if you have some that I haven't put down, you can just throw them in there. So my first hero of the week I texted you about is Nicholas Batum. And, the average listener might be like, A, who's Nicholas Batum? B, why is he a hero? If you don't know, he's an NBA player for about 150 years. He's been playing so long. He's from France, and he's on the Clippers still somehow. And they were playing an exhibition game in Seattle against the Portland Trail Blazers on Saturday night. He was interviewed, and he basically said this city absolutely should have a team. There's no more deserving team place than this. NBA should be coming to Seattle. It's gonna come to Seattle. It's coming.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're a hero, buddy.
Yeah. I I love people that just say it flat out that
Yep.
aren't from the city.
Yeah, he has no
Um,
connection to Seattle.
yeah, and I think everyone that was at that game is a hero. Did you see the pictures of how it was Pokemon night and there were Pikachus
Yes.
everywhere?
Yes. It was so weird.
That looked lit. James Harden put a Pikachu hat on in Seattle.
I
Like,
did not expect you to say that looked lit.
yeah, that looked lit. I missed out.
It was something.
I mean, Pokemon is still relevant, more relevant than they've had a man. I, they've
Harden did say when he put on the Pokemon mask in warmups, he said, you got to catch them all,
yeah,
which I gave Harden a little credit because he's not
yeah.
always fun to watch, but that was a good moment.
Side note, Elzer,
Yes.
Pokemon was in its prime when I was a kid, right?
Yep.
And this happened to a lot of people during COVID. Um, we uncovered our Pokemon cards. Some people
Mm-hmm.
kept them.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how you always, at least with collectibles, are like, these are going to be valuable one day.
Yep.
I opened up those things. I went on eBay and I was like, whoa, these things are actually valuable. Like they shot up in value because they stopped making them and there's not an overproduction, right?
What are we talking
So,
about valuable? Like what kind of money?
like, a stack of like regular looking Pokemon cards that weren't worth anything, like maybe a cent when I was a kid, are
Yeah.
worth like $50, $60
Ooh.
per.
How much is a Jigglypuff?
A Jigglypuff, like a regular card, that's worth a lot of money.
What
Like,
about Bulbasaur?
man, you're pretty good.
This is the only two I know. And Pika. Whenever I talk about it in class to try and connect to the kids because they still know Pokemon, I do that.
Yeah,
They like it. Yeah.
yeah,
Those are the only ones I know. I also learned one time because I never did Pokemon that like all they do is say their name over and
yeah,
over. That's so
yeah.
stupid. Okay, your
Uh,
Pokemon card was my 1989 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr.
yeah.
card, which
Uh,
actually is worth like $35. It's really
yeah, because
depressing.
they overproduced
I
that,
know. I was
right? There's
like,
less Pikachus than
when
Ken
I was
Griffey
a
Jr. rookie
kid,
cards.
I mean, we got it. I could have sold it for 50 when I was like 10,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
it's just gone down in value. It's so
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah.
So sad. All right.
So
Well,
that game was really cool that they did that.
although I did
And
agree with a tweet I saw, and I apologize to whoever tweeted it because I thought it was a
yeah.
good point. It was, hey, I hope everyone has a great time at this game tonight. But this is the fourth exhibition game in Seattle, and stop exploiting us, trying to get Seattle to prove it needs a team
Yeah.
and just give us our Sonics back. And I was
It's
like,
really tiring. Yeah.
preach. Like, I
Yeah.
went to the first Durant game when he pulled off the jersey and he had like a Sonics Kemp jersey on. And
Yeah.
like, it was awesome. The Warriors came and played. It was so cool. And then I went 2 years ago when it was Dame and the Blazers, and it was really cool. And I'm like, okay, great. Can
Yeah.
you just announce the Sonics?
Yeah.
And then we'll have a full podcast episode about it.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Another hero of the week, Kev.
Yeah.
Do you know why Marshawn Lynch is a hero of the week?
Well, there's rumors swirling
Oh, maybe I don't know this. Go ahead.
that he's going to run for mayor of Oakland.
Okay, that is not what I was thinking, but that's amazing.
You did not know this? I thought this was
No,
what this was about.
no, this is much more Seattle focused. He, in warmups today, was at the end zone, and Russ was warming up in the end zone, and he went and took a handoff from him in street clothes while Russ was warming up, which was awesome. But also, like, he dapped up Russ, and like Marshawn's just a hero. Like,
Yeah.
we can sit on here and be like, we've done this. We've talked about Russ and his complicated legacy,
Yeah.
and people are frustrated by him, and so many of his teammates seemingly didn't love him in the end.
Yeah.
And Marshawn, has every reason to be mad at him and Pete Carroll and whoever else for that Super Bowl. And he's just a loving guy, man. Marshawn's
Yeah.
just the man.
Well,
He
find
just
yeah.
connects people. Like,
I
he has
have
no problem.
I have a challenge. Find a quote or a clip of Marshawn Lynch saying anything negative about a teammate. It's impossible. People have tried to get him to
Maybe in
say things.
Buffalo.
Yeah, people
He
have.
ended. He had some stuff in Buffalo. That, he got
Yeah.
like a DUI before he left Buffalo, and
Okay.
and he was really unhappy there. There might have been some stuff there, but definitely not in Seattle.
But like about his teammates,
Yeah, you're right. You're probably
I
right.
think
You're
he's a
probably right.
consummate teammate.
Yeah.
Also, while we're on I was wearing a Marshawn Lynch shirt today, but uh, people love him at Cal
Oh
game
yeah.
day.
Oh
He
yeah.
came out with like his little the golf cart that
Yep. Against the Huskies.
yeah, it was against the Huskies.
Yeah.
He rode that onto the field
Did you
after
you
the
weren't
game.
you weren't old enough to remember that game, do you?
Uh-uh. No.
I remember watching, and I don't remember Marshawn as a player, but I remember
Yeah.
that after. And of course, I was a Husky fan. I was like, who is this guy? Like, what the hell? And then my buddies were like, that is hilarious. We love this guy, whatever.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
they went to Buffalo, and he was kind of like, whatever. But when he got traded to Seattle, he was a big enough name. And I'm like, that's awesome. I hope this works. And then, of course, I mean,
Worked.
he's top five most beloved Seattle athlete for me.
Yeah.
I'm
Um,
not saying all time best,
yeah.
but like beloved.
If you want to
Marshawn
know
is
where
he's my
he's
favorite
ranked,
Seahawk ever.
yeah.
He's
If
my
you
favorite
want to know,
Seahawk ever.
if you want to know where he's ranked, you can see our top 100.
Oh, the
Um,
salesman.
uh, yeah, Marshawn is just. Can you think of another player post retirement that has been as relevant or as cool as Marshawn Lynch? Like he is the
Yeah,
model of how to do it.
that's true.
Okay.
He's
Who's
a part Kraken owner, I think, too. Speaking
yeah,
of
and
my
he's
last
has
hero of the
not been
week.
denounced like Macklemore.
Oh, I showed a Macklemore picture in class the other day, and I was like, I'm not sure I should be showing this. I don't know anymore, like what's happening. Moving on.
Yeah,
So Jordan Eberle is my last hero of the week. Just to circle back to the Kraken, he had 2 goals in their only win and a shootout goal, which they don't count as a goal,
yeah.
but they needed that badly. So he's my other hero. Do you have any other heroes of the week?
I want to shout out Seattle Prep grad Spencer Hawes.
Oh,
He tweeted out during the Husky game. He was like, "We got to have open tryouts for a kicker."
mm,
After Gross got the one blocked, and then he barely made a field goal. I don't know if he
Yeah.
actually made it. It
Yeah.
went above the upright. No one could tell.
Yeah.
And this is a new rule that we found out. You can't review a field goal kick
Over the top.
over the top.
You can review a field goal, but not if it's ruled in over the top of the cross, or
Yeah.
not the crossbar, the post, or the
Yeah.
whatever you call it.
So, shout out
Wait,
to
so you're shouting out Spencer for calling for someone's
oh, no,
job?
no, no, wait. So wait for this.
Okay.
So then I tweeted him back. I replied to him. I said, "Do you trust Blanchett,
Is
kicker?
the backup
Is
kickers
the
from
backup
Blanchett?
kicker?" Shout out to Dominic Sally, my best
Mhm.
friend, who coached Sam Finnegan, who's the backup kicker.
Also, I have a buddy who's the kickers coach at Blanchett, Nate Bassage, who doesn't
So,
listen to our podcast,
so
but
maybe we just trust because Dominic. I I'm not going to speak for Dominic, but I'm sure he supports his kicker and thinks
yeah,
he's more than capable of doing the job. But Spencer Hawes, just like a true Seattle Prep alum, he said, never, I'd never trust someone from Blanchett. So you're my hero for keeping up your high school rivalry. Um,
I'm gonna stay out of this one. Spencer's never been short on opinions, Kev.
yeah,
Let's
I
just
know,
say that.
I know.
I think everyone who follows him knows that. So he's called for the heads of many a coaches in Husky history. Probably called for my head as an assistant basketball coach
Yeah.
in high school making $3,000 a year. So, all right. Any other heroes? Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Moving to the villains. First villain of the week. That's my son Felix. He says he's a villain. DK Metcalf. Kev.
DK, he was laughing.
Felix likes that one.
DK Metcalf. Yeah.
So
Everyone's
here's
waiting for him to reach his
he's
potential.
got 9 fumbles as a wide receiver, more than any receiver in football, I think, who's played legitimate snaps. Um, he has 2 big ones this year that one could argue completely changed the course
Yeah.
of 2 games. He got on the headset and there's lip readers on Twitter who have said he yelled at Grubb, let's throw the ball past the
I saw
sticks
that. I saw
with
that.
an F bomb in there. Meanwhile, 6 targets, 1 catch in that stretch by DK Metcalf. Um, I'm just kind of at a point, and I'm not alone, where, hey, DK, if you're gonna be in the CD Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, if you want to be there, then you gotta do the stuff that those guys do.
Yeah.
And you're not. And
Yeah.
the Seahawks need you to be.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you have any issues with him being a diva? Do you care about that at all? Does it matter to
I
you?
care. I don't care when guys are ridiculous. So like,
Yeah.
and ironically, Justin Jefferson is like the least diva elite wide receiver ever.
Yeah.
If you watch the show Receiver, he lives in a house that looks like it's the house of like a dentist in Minnesota.
I mean, to
Like,
be fair, he lives in Minnesota.
right, which means he could live in a mansion. Like,
That's true.
right? Like compared to Seattle prices, he could live
Yeah.
somewhere ridiculous. And he lives in like a very average house. And he was like, I don't need it. He just goes and sits in his recliner and watches Monday Night Football. Like he's so down to earth. And I don't know. He doesn't complain about who his quarterback is. Maybe I'm wrong, but we watch a lot of Justin Jefferson. It is Felix's favorite football player. He loves the
Yeah.
gritty. And I just see DK like I thought he had turned a leaf this year. I'm like, he's so calm on the sideline. He seems to be owning his mistakes. And as soon as things go bad again, he's on the headset yelling at Ryan Grubb. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't really think the Seahawks' problem is they're not throwing the ball past the sticks. Like, what is he even talking about?
Yeah.
Geno Smith has thrown the ball downfield as much as anybody in the league. DK, how about you don't hold every time there's a wide receiver screen? How about you don't fumble 2 weeks in a row in huge plays?
Yeah.
He's a villain. A villain. That's my villain. Yep.
This next one's interesting. I don't
Yeah.
think I agree with this.
Tell me
But
who I wrote down.
you wrote down Brendan Carroll.
Yeah, you're going to agree with it. You know why?
Why?
Because how many carries did Jonah Coleman have this week, Kev?
Yeah, but that's okay. It says Jedd Fisch villain. Or
No,
is it
Brennan Carroll's calling the plays.
is he actually? I thought Fish was.
What the hell does Brennan Carroll do then?
I think he just coaches the offensive line.
I think Carroll's the
Play
offensive
caller?
coordinator, isn't he?
Yeah, but I think Fish calls the plays.
Oh my God, I'm trying to look this up now.
I think Fish is the play caller. Or maybe
Oh,
they collaborate.
we're never gonna find this. All I'm finding is stuff about Grubb and DeBoer. So
Yeah.
sad. By the
But
way, what if you're, I mean, talk about villains in Alabama. I mean, the people in Alabama don't like
they don't like
it.
that he wears a t-shirt.
They don't like he wears a t-shirt. They don't like that he barely beat South Carolina after losing to Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
The grass isn't
It
always
does
greener.
not get easier. He plays who does he play
Well,
this
Brennan
week?
Carroll's the offensive coordinator,
Yeah.
and it doesn't say if he calls the plays.
I'm
I assumed he did.
yeah. Well, let's play.
All right. Well, we're
Let's
getting caught in the minutia now.
It's Fish or Carroll.
I'm
Either
upset
or. But the
that
Huskies play
Jonah
caller.
Coleman had 9 carries, and he's never had more than 18 this year.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's ridiculous. I think they have no rhythm offensively.
Yeah.
I think obviously they give up 40 points to Iowa, but as you noted in I read your game recap, by the way.
Thank you.
It was great. It was really good, Kev. I want to compliment you. Verbal
Thank you.
affirmation. You're laughing because you're embarrassed. You shouldn't be
Yeah.
embarrassed, Kev.
Yeah.
I'm giving you a compliment.
Thanks.
But one of the things was the field position, right? They just kept giving the ball to Iowa wherever they wanted,
Yeah.
right?
The
What,
defense
four
was
times
actually
in their
not that
own
bad.
end
Yeah.
or whatever? Um, I just think, I mean, it's part of their red zone issues. Like they get too cute. And my theory about the Huskies that I told my brother-in-law tonight, shout out James, is I said Jedd Fisch seems to be trying to please too many people. And I've done this as a coach. I'm not comparing myself to Jedd Fisch,
Yeah.
but as a coach and as being around coaches, I've seen other coaches do this where you're trying to, in basketball, the equivalent would be like you have an 11-man rotation when you should have 8, right? So
Yes.
you're just trying to like get everybody shots and please everybody and whatever. And so you have no identity, you have no idea where you're going. And I think that's the Huskies. So it's like, well, we don't want Cameron Davis to transfer. We don't want Adam Muhammad to transfer. We don't want Damon Williams to transfer. And so we're going to play 4 tight ends and we're going to play 2 quarterbacks and 3 running backs. You know what I'd like to see? Jonah Coleman get the rock. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, and he's
So
gonna get drafted anyway. So
Brennan, Carroll,
yeah.
and Jedd Fisch, because
Yeah.
you told me to, are my villains.
Yeah. I just wanted like they asked Coleman. They said, "Yeah, like are you injured? Like is something wrong with you?" And he's like,
Yeah, did they
"No,
ask
no,
him?
no." Yeah, and he just said, "No, it's a multi-back system."
Yeah, that is
And yeah,
absolutely idiotic.
he's averaging like 8 yards per carry. Like
Oh, we're gonna talk about it, Kev.
oh,
It's my top 5 for you later.
it was bad.
So
I just
you get
yeah.
to do some guessing later.
Yeah, read my recap if you want to learn more about my take from the Iowa game. The
Yeah,
bottom line is Iowa was just way better. It wasn't necessarily like self-inflicted wounds. Like, yeah, the red zone stuff
right.
was there. Penalties were normal. It's just they had a better offensive line and a better defensive line.
Yeah, they got beaten. Like, if you're a Big Ten fan from the Midwest, this is a game where you're like, welcome to the Big Ten, West Coast boys, right?
Yeah, like the
Like
Rutgers game didn't feel. I felt the Rutgers game was just like UW sucking, like at the worst time.
in Michigan didn't feel like it probably because it was at home, but like
Yeah,
playing in Iowa at 9 a.m. Pacific
yeah,
and getting just absolutely trucked at the line of scrimmage for 2.5 hours
over and over again.
felt like the Huskies were now in the Big Ten and it wasn't
Yeah.
going
It
well.
was like, yeah, we knew you were going to run the ball as soon as we saw the game on the schedule back in the summer or whenever
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
released.
we previewed it and we were like,
They're going to
they're going to
run
run it. McNamara sucks. Their
Yeah.
defense is pretty good and they have a good tight end.
Yep.
And yep, we nailed it. Actually, we've nailed pretty much every game.
Yeah, I hope we get Indiana right.
Yeah, I think they can win.
Yeah.
Indiana's not the same as Iowa, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to pound you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like if we played Wisconsin, I'd be like, oh boy,
Yeah.
we don't play Wisconsin, do we?
No, we don't.
Okay.
They beat Rutgers 42-7. Did you
I
see that
know.
score?
I did see that score. I check all the scores.
But
Um,
Northwestern won.
they
Sorry.
crushed Maryland, crushed them. Yeah, it's
Uh,
wild. Okay, my last villain. I just have to hit it one more time for us. Your Seattle Reign. Since we guessed over under 4.5 goals, they haven't scored a goal in 3 matches. And in fact, their streak now goes back to it's been since September 6th. So that is a month and a week. So 5 weeks since they've scored a goal. A goal, not a win, which they also haven't done. They've lost 5 in a row. They haven't scored a goal in 5 weeks.
you know what they need to do? I had a basketball coach do this in a game. Who's the head coach? What's her name? I forgot her
Laura
name.
Harvey.
Laura Harvey, in the middle of the game, should just take the soccer ball and go and just kick it through the net, incur whatever penalties, suspensions, or whatever, so her team can see that it can happen. I had a coach do this during a basketball game. I was like in seventh grade or something.
That's kind of awesome.
He stopped the game. It was against St. Louis.
CYO, I was going to say, has
Missed,
to be.
missing shots, and we would usually make our shots
Yeah.
like over and over again. He stops the game, takes the ball from the referee, walks on the court, and takes the ball and like goes under the hoop and like throws it through the net and goes, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a lid on the hoop.
It's so awesome.
And then he walks out and he walks back to the bench and he's like, all right. And then we went on a run.
That is awesome.
Actually, was that me playing? Was I on that team or was I watching that? I can't remember.
Don't
My
worry. Go
memory's
with
faded.
you.
It
It's a
doesn't
good
matter.
it's a good memory if it's your team. It's better. Go with that. I think
Yeah.
Laura Harvey should absolutely do that. I think when there's like a injured player down or something, she should just run on the field, take the
Score a
ball. You know
goal.
how the sideline has a ball for when it goes out? Just take it and just kick the crap out of it into the goal and then just walk off, be like, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Just leave. Even if she gets fired, like just do it. Like and what's sad is they're playing. I mean, we talked about this. Huerta's gone
Yeah.
on loan and whatever, but they still have players that they expect to score and they just suck. So,
Yeah. Right.
oh,
Top
anyway,
five. Let's
top
get the
five, Tim.
vibes
Top
going.
five.
Let's get the
Vibes are
vibes
back.
going.
Oh, my
Yeah.
vibes are not going to be back on mine, but
Yeah.
maybe I'll go mine first. Keep the vibes negative. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Okay,
Bring it.
let's go right back to Jonah Coleman. Um, I'm not going to tell you anything about Jonah Coleman yet, but I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you this question. I'm going to give you the year and I'll give you some hints because it's a harder one. Top 5 average yards per carry running backs in Husky history. Okay.
Ooh, this
I'll
is
give
a
you the
good
year.
one.
And they have to have 100 carries. So it's not going to be some random dude, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you the years and then you can start guessing. Okay. So you can start thinking about who these might be.
Yeah.
2016, 2000, 2022, 1997, 2017, and 1950. They are tied for the last spot. So the first spot is 2016. Can you remember who was a running back in 2016? Or do you want to try a different one? There's a year 2000,
No.
a 2022.
No. So I need to name 5 of them.
I mean, that's the idea of a top 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Corey Dillon.
He's not on the list.
Oh,
He would have been the 97 one, right? That you would have guessed, but he was before that.
Miles Gaskin.
Yes, Miles Gaskin is the 2017 person. 6.2 yards per carry, tied for 5th with the guy from 1950 who you should get. You know this guy. We've talked about him before. He's the old
1950.
Husky running back they always talk about. He's a white
19
guy.
Hugh
Yeah, Hugh McElhaney.
McElhaney.
Yeah. So they're tied at 6.2. So there's 2 guys at 6.3. One is from 97. He played for the Chiefs in the NFL briefly. He's a great name. And then the other guy is from 2022, and I feel like is very underrated / not talked about.
Savon Ahmed.
No.
Oh my God.
2 strikes. You blew it.
2000
Wayne
Topatala.
Tuilapa. Sorry, Wayne. Rashawn Sheehy is the 1997
I
one.
would
Do
have
you
never
remember?
got that one.
Really? You don't
Yeah, I would
remember
have.
Rashawn
Yeah,
Sheehy?
yeah.
Dude,
It's
he was
5
great.
years old. Yeah,
He was great.
would have not got that
That
one.
was that was my year from high school, so I was watching Husky football. All
Yeah,
right, 2000 the 2000 running back was Rich Alexis.
Alexis. Yeah,
Yep,
I
he
would.
was
I
there
should
with
have said
two
that
two
one.
Sopo. And then 2016, the best average for a running back all time in Husky history. Lavon Coleman.
No way.
Yeah, 7.5 yards per carry.
That's pretty good
Okay, do you know why I bring this up?
because
Ugh.
Coleman is averaging the most.
Jonah Coleman is not, but he's at 6.9, which would make him the second best in Husky history. And we are not giving him the football.
Enough.
Ugh.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. How many total yards does he have? I'm
He has
interested
99 carries on the season. So
because
he's
the
gonna
over.
be over whatever we said he was at the
Okay.
beginning of the year. We'll have to go check that. I
Just want
mean,
to make sure.
yeah, I mean, I think we basically said 1,000 yards, right?
Yeah.
Was what we were looking for. Um, Here, actually, how quickly can I get to this? I want to know where he is in the Big Ten, don't you? Oh,
Yeah.
Will Rogers has the most passing yards in the Big Ten, more than Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah. And Denzel Boston has the most
Jonah Coleman
touchdowns.
is third. He has 681 rushing yards.
And he's not getting the ball like 30 times like all the other Big Ten running backs, for
This
example.
is insane.
Yeah. That's
Monangai
insane.
is number two, who we talked about, and then we just saw him, Caleb Johnson from Iowa, who's really freaking good.
Yeah, dude. That
Dude, he
guy's
has
and draft.
937 yards, 7.9 a carry, 12 touchdowns.
I think
Get
he's
out of
draft
here.
eligible. I'm gonna get him on my fantasy team next year so I
Dude,
can actually beat you.
he's well. Oh, yeah. What happened this week, Kev?
I
You
think you beat
lost to
me.
me.
Yeah, I
Let's
think you beat me.
go.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott really blew it for you.
Yeah, he had 2 points in the fourth quarter. I was like, what's going on? Okay.
All right. Top five.
Top five. Top five single season sacks.
Oh, yeah.
From the Seahawks.
I'm ready.
Let's go.
Michael Sinclair, number one.
Yeah, 16.5 in 1998.
Yep.
Beast.
Jacob Green.
Yes, 1983. 16 sacks. Beast.
Patrick Kearney.
Dude, this is the one I
I'm
didn't
not
think you'd
looking at
get
it.
that.
Well,
14 and a half,
you
2007.
the top 100, I had to do so much research that like I was constantly looking it up because Cortez Kennedy should be on that top five as well.
Yes. Number five, 14 sacks in
This
1992.
next one's the
Fourth.
okay.
You
Well, I
got
have
one, two,
strikes.
three,
I
and
have
five.
strikes. So I'm gonna say Rufus Porter.
No,
Ah, see.
not
Okay.
even in the top.
Okay, not Rufus Porter.
He's number 20 at 10 and a half.
Rufus Porter did make our top 100 though. That's awesome.
1989.
It's not Jeff Bryant.
Jeff Bryant,
It
number
is.
four,
Let's
14.5.
go.
That was impressive. I think that was
The
one of your
Patrick
picks.
Kearney's the biggest pull.
Yeah.
Because Jeff Bryant, if you do the top 100 list, right? Like Jeff Bryant was on our top 100, Cortez, even Rufus Porter was. Who else did I say? Jacob Green was. Michael Sinclair wasn't actually in our top 100, which is interesting
Yeah.
because he had a very brief, amazing sack time in his life. But Patrick Kearney, the reason I thought of him is because when I wrote about Cortez Kennedy, he had the best quote. Not Cortez Kennedy, sorry, Walter Jones. He said it's like wrestling a bear for 3 hours. And I thought that was a great quote.
And then he
So
looked up Patrick Kearney. Yeah, the Sinclair thing's interesting because he had 96, he had 13, 97, he had 12, 98, he had the 16 and a half. That's a nice little through
did he
season.
not have any double digits besides those 3 years?
Probably. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see. He doesn't show up.
He might need to be in the top 100, honestly. Like
We
he
might
might
have
have had a
snubbed him.
better, that might be a better career than Rufus Porter.
Yeah.
But I don't think Sinclair made the Pro Bowl, so like he didn't get the accolades, even though he had the sacks. He was really one dimensional. He was like a Daryl Taylor type. He couldn't defend the run. I don't think he was just getting sacks. But
Yeah,
anyways,
he's kind
sorry,
of
Mike Sinclair.
I mean, there's a lot of Mariners that just hit home runs and they didn't make the list, like Richie
Richie
Sexton.
Sexton had a decent Mariners career.
Yeah.
Yeah. Adrian Beltre.
How does it always come back to the
Adrian
Mariners?
Belge always comes back to the Mariners. What do you think the first thing we're gonna end with this? What do you think the first thing they'll do in the offseason will be? Do you think it'll be a a trade, like a small trade? Here, I'll give you options. Ready? Small trade, no one cares about.
Yeah.
A big trade that blows people's minds. A crappy free agent signing.
Yeah.
Those three.
I just yawned. It's the
Yeah, everyone
first.
else did too. They're like, I'm out. I
It's
don't
the
care.
first at the first. I think they're gonna trade for a reliever and they're gonna trade a prospect for a
Like a
reliever.
small trade that no one cares
Yeah,
about.
and it might be a thing where they don't even keep the reliever. They might flip the dude. But yeah, I think that's what it's gonna be. And then you'll see some trade action. But I think, sorry, some free agent
Yeah.
signings.
All right.
Mediocre.
One more question for you. Has nothing to
Yeah.
do with that, but it has to go full circle to what we talked about with this NBA hopefully coming back to Seattle.
Yeah.
Are you excited for the NBA season to start?
Yeah. Not as much. No, not as much
No.
as college hoops.
Okay. Oh, that's fair.
I'm more excited to watch some Santa Clara basketball than I am to watch NBA on Tuesday night, just to be honest.
Kev, that's a great way to end too, because we should have led with this. If anyone's still listening and you like WCC hoops,
Yeah.
Kevin and I are working on. We're gonna have what would you call it? A separate channel?
Yeah, it's like a separate newsletter.
There you go.
So you
Yeah.
won't get it. Like you'll have to, I'll put it up on when we put it out, you'll have an option to kind of sign up to get these. But starting like a WCC newsletter where we
Yeah.
get posts on WCC hoops throughout the season. And I think it's something we're both passionate about. And
Yep.
well, we like watching college basketball.
And
So
it's under reported on. We're not really reporters, but
yeah,
it's not covered enough. WCC. You're gonna get enough
yeah,
Husky coverage, and we'll talk about the Huskies. We will not
yeah,
really cover Gonzaga other than within our WCC lens.
yeah.
But we've already written some previews. We're gonna have team previews. We're gonna have predictions, and we'll do like a weekly newsletter for the WCC. I'm excited. I'm
Are
excited
the
for
Seahawks
Santa
on a
Clara.
bye this week?
No, they
No,
go play Atlanta.
they play Falcons. So I get a break because the Huskies, thank God, get a break.
I started writing my takeaways for the Seahawks, and I got
Yeah.
mad. I got mad, so I had to stop. But I'll have that out soon,
Yeah.
and
Well,
then we'll.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks for joining us on episode 18.
here comes our outro music. Here it goes.
See you next week.